Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper. Uncover the hidden secrets of history, from ancient mysteries to lost civilizations. Join us on this thrilling journey. Subscribe and dive into the unknown, monuments of stone that have come to define ancient Egypt. We think we know their story, colossal tombs for powerful pharaohs. But just a few kilometers away, hidden within a restricted military zone, lies a mystery that shatters all our assumptions. It's not a pyramid. It's a giant, open wound in the desert bedrock, a scar known as Zoyet El Aryan. At the bottom of this massive pit lies a subterranean chamber of breathtaking precision, and inside it, an object that defies all logic. A 30-ton, oval-shaped granite tub, perfectly carved. Officially, this is the unfinished Northern Pyramid, the abandoned tomb of a forgotten king. But the evidence doesn't add up. There's no body, no treasure, and the design makes no sense for a burial. What if this wasn't a tomb at all? What if we are looking at the silent remains of a lost technology, a machine of immense power? Today, we journey into the forbidden zone to ask the question: is this a king's final resting place, or a sophisticated device that echoes the forgotten science of energy? To truly understand the puzzle of Zoyet El Aryan, we have to do something that is almost impossible today. We have to go there. This isn't a journey you can book online. There are no tour buses, no gift shops, no well-worn paths. The site is located within a restricted military zone, its secrets guarded by fences and the vast, silent authority of the desert itself. But over the last century, a handful of pioneering archaeologists and determined researchers have gained access. They've taken photographs, drawn maps, and written detailed descriptions. And from their records, we can piece together a virtual journey, a step-by-step exploration of one of the most enigmatic and forbidden places on the entire planet. So, let's leave the familiar world behind and descend into the mystery. Our journey begins not by looking up, but by looking down. When we arrive at the site of the so-called unfinished Northern Pyramid, the first thing we notice is what's missing. There is no towering monument, no triangular silhouette breaking the horizon. Instead, we are confronted with a colossal wound in the earth, a vast, open scar carved directly into the living limestone bedrock of the plateau. This is the first feature of our tour, the scar in the desert. This isn't a simple pit. It's a massive, steeply sloping trench, a grand causeway that plunges into the earth. It begins almost at ground level and descends at a sharp, deliberate angle. It's over 100 meters long, longer than a football field, and wide enough to drive a truck down. The scale is monumental. The walls of the trench are sheer, cut with a precision that speaks of immense effort and a clear plan. Standing at the edge, looking down its length, you feel a sense of profound purpose. This wasn't just a hole. It was an entryway, a grand procession route leading not to a temple in the sky, but to a hidden world below. The floor of the trench is not smooth. It's a series of rough-hewn, giant steps, as if designed for beings of a colossal stature. Or perhaps, as some researchers have suggested, these weren't steps for people at all, but notches designed to help control the descent of something incredibly heavy. As we walk down this ramp, the desert sun beats down, but the air grows cooler. The sounds of the modern world fade away, replaced by the echo of our own footsteps against the ancient stone. We are leaving the surface world behind, descending deeper and deeper into the bedrock. It feels less like approaching a building and more like entering a natural cave that has been artificially and perfectly reshaped. The sheer amount of rock that had to be quarried and removed just to create this trench is staggering, rivaling the volume of stone in some of the smaller, completed pyramids. And all of this work, all of this effort was just for the entrance. It begs the immediate question: what could possibly be at the bottom that would justify such a monumental undertaking? After descending for what feels like an eternity, the trench finally levels out. We are now standing at the bottom, approximately 25 meters or 8 stories below the desert surface. We are in a world of shadow and stone. And it is here, at the heart of the complex, that we encounter the second stop on our tour, the Chamber of Secrets. Before us lies a vast, rectangular space, a subterranean hall carved with breathtaking precision. The first thing that commands our attention is the floor. It is not the native limestone bedrock we've been walking on. The entire floor of this chamber is paved with enormous blocks of granite. Not just any granite, but pink Aswan granite, quarried from a site more than 800 kilometers to the south. Each paving stone is a monolith, weighing several tons, and they are fitted together so perfectly that you can barely slide a piece of paper between them. This is a level of craftsmanship that rivals, and in some ways surpasses, what we see in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. The sheer logistical challenge is mind-boggling. These multi-ton granite blocks had to be quarried, transported over immense distances, and then lowered with pinpoint accuracy into this deep pit, to be fitted together like a microscopic puzzle. Why? Why go to the trouble of creating a perfect granite floor deep underground where it would be permanently sealed away in darkness? In a traditional tomb, the focus of the fine masonry is typically on the burial chamber itself. But here, the entire floor of this massive antechamber is a work of art. The walls surrounding us are the sheer bedrock, but even they show signs of incredible workmanship, cut straight and true. The atmosphere in this chamber is heavy, silent, and ancient. It feels like a place of immense importance, a high-tech laboratory or a sacred sanctum, not simply a basement for a tomb. You get the sense that this chamber is the main event, the very reason for the existence of the entire complex. The air is cool and still, and you feel a sense of being completely insulated from the world above. It is in this magnificent, hidden hall that we finally come face to face with the central object of our quest, the ultimate enigma of Zoyed el-Aryan. Set flush into the center of this perfect granite floor is something that immediately breaks all the rules of ancient Egyptian burials. It's not the rectangular sarcophagus we have been conditioned to expect. What we see is utterly unique in all of Egyptology. Our third stop is the Granite Enigma. It is an enormous, oval-shaped basin, almost like a giant bathtub, carved from a single, solid block of the same rose granite as the floor. It is immense, weighing an estimated 30 tons. The exterior is smoothly finished, but it's the interior that truly stuns the senses. It is polished to a glass-like sheen, perfectly smooth to the touch. The shape is a perfect, symmetrical oval, a form that is incredibly difficult to carve with such precision, especially on this scale. It is positioned with absolute accuracy in the center of the chamber, an integral part of the granite floor itself, not just an object sitting on top of it. Its placement is so precise that it feels less like a piece of furniture and more like a crucial component of a larger machine, locked into place. And as we stand before it, a flood of questions overwhelms us. First, the engineering. How did they lower a 30-ton, uniquely shaped object into a 25-meter deep pit with such care that it wasn't damaged? How did they maneuver it into its final resting place with millimeter accuracy? The sloping trench provides a clue, but the final, delicate placement remains a profound mystery. Second, the function. The official story, as we'll discuss, is that this is a sarcophagus, but it looks nothing like one. Old Kingdom sarcophagi are rectangular, designed to hold a wooden coffin which in turn held the mummy. This oval shape makes no sense for that purpose. Furthermore, there is no sign of a lid. No massive granite slab has ever been found on the site that would match this oval basin. A coffin without a lid is not a coffin. It's a container, a tub, a basin. Its unique form cries out that it had a unique purpose. Looking at this object, you feel a sense of cognitive dissonance. Your mind knows the official label is sarcophagus, but your eyes tell you something different. It looks more like a piece of industrial equipment, something designed for a specific physical or chemical process. The precision, the material, the shape, they all point away from burial and towards function. This granite tub is the centerpiece, the riddle waiting to be solved. It sits in silence, offering no easy answers, challenging everything we thought we knew about the pharaoh's intentions. Finally, our journey takes us back up the long, sloping trench, out of the cool darkness and into the blinding Egyptian sun. We climb out of the pit and stand on the desert surface once more, blinking in the bright light. And it is here that we encounter the final, and perhaps most telling, part of the puzzle, the ghost of a pyramid. After witnessing the incredible scale and precision of the subterranean works, the massive trench, the granite-paved chamber, the 30-ton tub, we expect to see the beginnings of an equally grand pyramid on the surface. We expect to see towering core masonry, stacks of casing stones, a bustling construction site frozen in time. What we actually see is almost nothing. There is a large, square area, leveled and prepared for the pyramid's base. And in the center, surrounding the entrance to the trench, there are a few scant courses of limestone blocks, the very lowest level of the pyramid's core. And that's it. The rest of the area is a chaotic mess of limestone chippings, rubble, and broken rock, the debris of the initial quarrying and excavation. There are no stacks of prepared blocks waiting to be lifted into place. There is no sign of the massive ramps that would have been necessary to build a pyramid of the intended size. It's a bizarre anticlimax. The vast majority of the work, the most difficult and precise engineering, was completed deep underground. The easy part, the stacking of blocks on the surface, was barely even started. This leads to a fundamental logical contradiction. Why would any builder, ancient or modern, complete the most complex part of a project, first the foundation and the basement, only to abandon the site before starting the main structure? It's like building the intricate engine of a car and then walking away before you've even built the chassis. This upside-down construction sequence is perhaps the most powerful argument against the simple abandoned tomb theory. It suggests that the pyramid itself was secondary. It implies that the true purpose of this site was not the structure that was meant to rise into the sky, but the chamber that was hidden deep within the earth. The pyramid might have been intended as a final component, a capstone, or even a power collector for the device below. But its near-total absence on the surface tells a clear story. The main event, the heart of this project, was always the machine in the basement. The ghost of a pyramid on the surface is just a faint echo of the incredible, solid reality that lies hidden and waiting in the forbidden zone below. After our journey into the strange, subterranean world of Zoyat El Aryan, we are left with a profound sense of awe and a mountain of questions. The scale, the precision, the bizarre oval tubit all seems to defy easy explanation. But before we dive into the more speculative theories, it's crucial that we understand the official story. Mainstream Egyptology has studied this site for over a century, and they have developed a coherent, logical narrative to explain what we see. This narrative is the foundation of our understanding, the accepted truth you will find in academic journals and history books. So, to give this theory a fair hearing, let's approach it like an interview. Let's ask the most important questions and explore the answers that have been carefully constructed by generations of archaeologists. This is the official story, the theory of a king's lost tomb. Our first and most fundamental question is the most obvious one. If this was a tomb, who was it built for? This question takes us back to the dawn of Egyptology. In the early 20th century, the site was first systematically explored by the Italian archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti. While clearing the debris around the trench, his workers found something significant. Scrawled onto some of the loose blocks, in the rough, red ink handwriting of the ancient quarrymen, were several hieroglyphic inscriptions. These weren't formal, beautifully carved texts. They were more like modern construction notes, marking work gangs and delivery dates. But among these markings was a royal name, a cartouche. The problem is, the name was written hastily and is incredibly difficult to decipher. It seems to contain the signs for Ka and Ba, but the exact reading is still debated among scholars. Based on this faint clue, the pharaoh associated with this pyramid is often identified as Baka or Nebka. Now, who was this king? The truth is, we barely know. He is a ghost in the annals of history. The theory places him in the 4th dynasty, the golden age of pyramid building, which lasted from roughly 2613 to 2494 BC. This was the era of the great pharaohs like Sneferu, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, builders of the iconic pyramids at Dashur and Giza. According to the official timeline, Baka was likely a son of the pharaoh Djedefre, who was himself a son of Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. This would make Baka a grandson of the most famous pharaoh of all. The story goes that Baka ruled for only a very short time, perhaps just a few years, before his reign came to an abrupt end. There are no other major monuments to his name, no statues, no detailed records of his accomplishments. His entire legacy, his claim to existence, rests almost entirely on these few, faded ink marks on loose stones found at a desolate, unfinished construction site. So, the entire official story is built upon this foundation. A mysterious, short-lived king, a phantom pharaoh whose grand funerary monument was just getting started when his time ran out. This leads us directly to the next logical question in our investigation. If this was Baka's tomb, and we've seen the incredible granite object at its heart, we must ask, what exactly is the granite tub? The mainstream answer is direct and, on the surface, quite simple. It is a sarcophagus. Despite its completely unique oval shape, its immense size, and the lack of any parallel in all of Egypt, it is catalogued and referred to in all academic literature as the king's intended coffin. The logic here is based on context. The structure is located in a necropolis, city of the dead. It follows the general pattern of a pyramid complex. Therefore, the large stone container found in the burial chamber must be the sarcophagus. Egyptologists argue that while its shape is anomalous, it doesn't completely rule out its function as a coffin. Royal workshops were capable of incredible feats of artistry, and perhaps King Baka, for reasons we will never know, desired a unique, oval-shaped sarcophagus to set himself apart. It could have been a stylistic choice, an innovation that was never repeated because the project was abandoned. The theory also addresses the missing lid. It is presumed that a massive, flat or slightly curved granite lid, also oval-shaped, was planned and possibly even in the process of being made at the Aswan quarries. When the king died and construction halted, the lid was either never finished or never transported to the site. Over the millennia, any fragments or partially completed pieces could have been scavenged for other projects or simply lost to time. So, in the official view, we are looking at an incomplete set, a sarcophagus base that was successfully installed before its lid was ready. Its purpose was to hold the king's mummified remains for eternity, and its strange shape is simply an unexplained, but not impossible, deviation from the norm. It's considered an outlier, a single data point that doesn't fit the curve, but one that doesn't invalidate the entire graph. The theory of a phantom king and an unusual sarcophagus hinges on one crucial element, which brings us to our third question. If this was such a grand and important royal project, why was it never finished? This is the cornerstone of the entire official explanation. The answer, according to the consensus, is the premature death of the king. Building a pyramid was the single largest and most expensive undertaking of a pharaoh's reign. It was a national project that consumed vast resources, from manpower and food to stone and precious metals. The entire state-run economy was, in many ways, geared towards the successful completion of the king's eternal home. The official story paints a vivid picture. The young King Baka ascends to the throne and immediately commissions his pyramid at Zoyat El Arian, not far from the grand monuments of his forefathers at Giza. Tens of thousands of workers are mobilized. The difficult and dangerous work of excavating the massive trench and the subterranean chamber begins. The finest craftsmen and engineers are brought in to work the granite. The 30-ton sarcophagus is successfully quarried, transported, and installed a major milestone in the project. Things are proceeding as planned. And then disaster strikes. The king, still young, dies unexpectedly. Perhaps it was an illness, an accident, or a political assassination. The records are silent. But with his death, the entire project is thrown into chaos. In ancient Egypt, the resources of the state were immediately transferred to the new, living king. The successor pharaoh would have had his own grand funerary plans, his own pyramid site to begin. There was simply no political or religious will to continue building a tomb for a dead king, especially one who may have had a weak claim to the throne or a short, unremarkable reign. So the order was given to abandon the site. The workers packed up their tools and left. The half-finished inscriptions were left on the blocks. The ramps were deserted. The chamber, with its empty sarcophagus, was left open to the wind and sand for a time, before the entrance to the trench eventually collapsed or was filled in. The story of Zoyat El Arian, in this view, is a story of tragedy and abandonment. It is a perfect snapshot of a royal project frozen in time, cut short by the untimely death of its patron. This explanation neatly ties together all the loose ends. It explains the unfinished state, the lack of a body, and the absence of a lid and grave goods. They simply never made it to the site before the king died. Finally, to cement the official theory, we have to ask, what other evidence supports this being a tomb? Is it just the quarry marks and the general shape? Or is there more to the story? The supporting evidence is primarily contextual. Firstly, as mentioned, there is its location. Zoyat El Arian is situated squarely within the great Memphite necropolis, the massive chain of cemeteries that stretches for over 30 kilometers down the west bank of the Nile. It's located between the famous necropolises of Giza to the north and Abu Sur and Saqqara to the south. This is prime real estate for a royal burial. It would be highly unusual to find a non-funerary structure of this magnitude in the middle of the most sacred burial ground in the entire kingdom. Secondly, there is the architectural style. Although unfinished, what little exists is consistent with the building practices of the Fourth Dynasty. The use of massive blocks, the sheer scale of the excavation, and the choice of Aswan granite for the key components are all hallmarks of this specific period. The builders of the Giza pyramids were masters of megalithic construction, and the work at Zoyat El Arian, particularly underground, fits this pattern perfectly. It looks and feels like a Fourth Dynasty royal project. Furthermore, there is another, smaller pyramid nearby, known as the Layer Pyramid, which is attributed to a Third Dynasty king. This shows that the area was indeed used for royal burials prior to the Fourth Dynasty, reinforcing its status as a sacred necropolis. So, when you assemble all the pieces of the official story, it forms a compelling narrative. You have a little-known king from the correct dynasty. You have a structure that, despite its quirks, is in the right place and built in the right style. You have a massive stone box that, while oddly shaped, is in the spot where a sarcophagus should be. And you have a plausible reason for its unfinished state, the king's early death, which conveniently explains away all the missing elements. It is a logical, self-contained explanation that requires no leaps into unknown technologies or lost sciences. It is a human story of ambition, death, and the unforgiving passage of time. And for over a century, This has been the accepted truth of the mystery at Zoyet El Arian. The official story is neat. It's logical, self-contained, and it explains away the strangeness of Zoyet El Arian with a single, convenient event: the untimely death of a king. For many, that's where the story ends. But for an investigator, a neat story is often a reason to look closer. When a conclusion seems too perfect, it's time to open the case file again and re-examine the evidence, piece by piece. So, let's put on our investigator's hat. Let's treat Zoyet El Arian not as an archaeological site, but as a crime scene where the crime is a major disruption to the historical record. The official story is our primary theory, but now we must test it against the hard, physical evidence. And when we do, we find that the neat story begins to unravel. This is the case file of the anomalies, the moment when the tomb theory crumbles. Our investigation begins with the star witness, the centerpiece of the whole mystery. Let's label it Exhibit A, the impossible granite box. The official report labels this object a sarcophagus. But a good investigator never trusts a label without scrutinizing the object itself. And the more we scrutinize this box, the more it refuses to cooperate with the official story. The first problem, and it's a big one, is the shape. The official theory dismisses the oval form as a mere stylistic choice, an anomaly. But in an investigation, there are no anomalies, only clues. In the entire history of the Old Kingdom, the golden age of pyramid building, royal sarcophagi were rectangular. This was not just a tradition. It was a deeply symbolic and practical design. The rectangular shape mirrored the shape of the burial chamber, which in turn mirrored the shape of a house, the eternal home for the deceased. It was a consistent, powerful symbol. Why would one king, Baka, suddenly deviate from this profoundly important tradition? Why would he choose a curved, oval shape that has no precedent before it and no imitators after it? The argument of stylistic choice is an argument from ignorance. A more logical conclusion is that the unique shape points to a unique function. The builders were not making a house for the dead. They were making a specific component for a specific purpose, and that purpose required an oval form. Then we consider the craftsmanship. Investigators who have studied the object, like engineer and author Christopher Dunn, have noted that the interior is not just smooth. It is geometrically perfect and polished to a degree that is far beyond what would be necessary to simply hold a mummy. It looks less like a rustic coffin and more like the inside of a high-precision industrial vessel. Finally, we have to consider the sheer effort. Transporting a 30-ton block of granite over 800 kilometers and lowering it into a deep pit is an astonishing feat. Why go to such extreme lengths for a burial box, only to abandon the rest of the project? It suggests that the installation of this specific object was not just one step in a larger process, but was perhaps the most important goal of the entire construction. The sarcophagus doesn't look like a coffin. It doesn't act like a coffin. It doesn't follow any of the rules of a coffin. Exhibit A is not cooperating. It is silent, but its shape and precision are screaming that it is something else entirely. An uncooperative star witness is a problem for any case. But a good investigator knows to look not just at what is present at the scene, but also at what is conspicuously absent. This brings us to our next file, a collection of crucial missing pieces. Let's call it Exhibit B, the missing evidence. A murder scene with no weapon is suspicious. A tomb with no tomb-related evidence is just as suspicious. The official theory uses the king's sudden death to explain away everything that's missing. But this starts to feel less like an explanation and more like a convenient excuse that can't be proven or disproven. Let's list the missing items. First, and most importantly, a body. A tomb is, by definition, a place to house the dead. Yet, no mummy, no bones, not even a single fragment of human remains has ever been found in the chamber or the granite tub. The defenders of the tomb theory argue that the king was never buried there because the project was abandoned. This is plausible, but it's an argument from silence. Second, the lid. As we've noted, a 30-ton granite sarcophagus would require an equally massive granite lid. The official story says it was never delivered, but this seems unlikely. In other unfinished pyramid complexes, like the Pyramid of Sekemkit at Saqqara, archaeologists found a sealed, yet empty, sarcophagus. The lid was made, delivered, and installed even if the king was never placed inside. The complete and total absence of a lid at Zoyet El Arian, not a finished one, not a broken one, not even a partially quarried one found at Aswan that could be linked to the project, is highly suspicious. It suggests, once again, that perhaps a lid was never part of the design. Third, and perhaps most damningly, grave goods. A pharaoh's burial was the most elaborate ceremony in ancient Egypt, involving a vast array of treasures, tools, furniture, and offerings intended to serve the king in the afterlife. The argument is that since the king was never buried here, the grave goods were never brought. But what about the tools of the workers who built the place? What about pottery fragments from their meals? What about the remnants of construction materials, wood from levers or sledges, rope fragments? Most archaeological sites, even those that were robbed in antiquity, are rich with the debris of human activity. Tomb robbers are messy. They break things, they drop things, they leave behind what they can't carry. But according to the reports of the first excavators like Barsanti, the chamber at Zoyet El Arian was found almost surgically clean, sterile. This level of cleanliness is unnatural for an abandoned construction site or a looted tomb. It feels more like a facility that was decommissioned, cleaned out, and then sealed. The lack of evidence is, in itself, a form of evidence. It points away from the chaotic scene of an abandoned project and towards a deliberate, clean shutdown. The case against the tomb theory is growing. We have a strange central object and a suspicious lack of supporting evidence. Now, let's zoom out and look at the overall plan of the site, the blueprint of the operation. This is Exhibit C, the flawed design. A good investigator looks for logic in the sequence of events. The official story claims this is a logical sequence. The king started his tomb and then died. But the construction sequence itself is deeply illogical for a tomb. Think about it like building a house. You lay the foundation, you build the walls, you put on the roof, and then you bring in the heavy furniture like a grand piano or a bathtub. You don't install a massive, immovable bathtub in the middle of an open foundation and then try to build the rest of the house around it. Yet that is exactly what we see at Zoyet El Arian. The builders undertook the most difficult, dangerous, and technically demanding part of the entire project first, excavating the deep trench and the subterranean chamber, paving it with giant granite blocks, and installing the 30-ton tub. This would have been the final, not the first, phase of the underground work. It is completely backward. The logical sequence would be to excavate the pit, build the pyramid's core masonry up to a certain level, and then use the structure of the pyramid itself as a platform and an anchor to carefully lower the sarcophagus into the chamber below. The fact that they did it in reverse, completing the furniture before the house, strongly suggests that the furniture was the entire point. The chamber and the granite tub were the primary objective. The pyramid that was supposed to go on top was secondary, perhaps even an afterthought or a final component to be added later. The design is not flawed if you see it as a tomb. The design is perfect if you see it as a project to build and house a specific piece of underground machinery. The flawed design is a major crack in the foundation of the official story. Our case file is almost complete. We've examined the physical evidence, the missing items, and the flawed logic of the construction. There is one last file to open, one that takes us from the macroscopic to the microscopic. This is Exhibit D, the whispers of lost technology. This part of the investigation relies on modern analysis. Mainstream Egyptology maintains that the pyramid builders used simple tools: copper chisels, stone pounders, and manual labor. But when engineers and forensic analysts look at the stonework at sites like Zoyet El Arian, they see things that don't fit that picture. Inside the granite tub, there are claims of tool marks that are not rough and chipped, as one would expect from stone bashing. Instead, they appear smooth and curved, consistent with the cutting path of a large, high-speed rotating tool. Christopher Dunn, who has spent decades analyzing these marks, argues that they show evidence of advanced machining. He suggests that the Egyptians must have possessed some form of high-speed sawing and drilling technology, capable of cutting through hard granite at a rate that would be difficult to replicate even with some modern tools. This is, of course, highly controversial. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss these claims, arguing that the marks can be explained by traditional methods using sand as an abrasive. But the debate rages on. The whispers of lost technology are persistent. They suggest that the how of this construction is just as mysterious as the why. If the builders possessed a technology far beyond simple hand tools, then it stands to reason that the purpose of their construction might also be far beyond a simple tomb. So, as we close our case file, the official story looks deeply wounded. We have a central object that doesn't fit its description, a crime scene stripped of all corroborating evidence, a construction plan that makes no logical sense for a tomb, and tantalizing hints of a technology that shouldn't exist. The neat, simple story of a king's lost tomb has crumbled under the weight of these anomalies. The evidence does not point to a story of death and religion. It points to a story of function, engineering, and a purpose we have yet to understand. The investigation is far from over. The case against the tomb theory is closed. The evidence simply does not fit the conclusion. We are left standing in the desert, facing a profound vacuum of understanding. When a prevailing theory collapses, we are granted a rare and exciting opportunity: the freedom to ask a different kind of question. If the builders of Zoyet El Arian were not priests and pharaohs focused on the afterlife, who were they? What if we stop thinking of them as religious symbolists and start thinking of them as they may have seen themselves, as brilliant, pragmatic engineers? If we are looking at the work of engineers, then we are looking at a machine. But what kind of machine? To answer that, we have to take a leap of imagination, guided by the work of one of history's most brilliant and enigmatic minds, Nikola Tesla. Tesla was a man who lived a century ago but whose ideas are still shaping our future. He didn't just invent alternating current. He dreamed of a world powered wirelessly, with energy drawn from the very fabric of the Earth and its atmosphere. He believed our planet was a massive electrical generator, and if you knew how, you could tap into its power. What if the ancient Egyptians knew something that Tesla rediscovered? What if the unfinished pyramid isn't a tomb, but a silent testament to a lost science of energy? Let's explore this possibility, not as a proven fact, but as a speculative journey. This is the Tesla Connection, a power plant in the desert. Let's begin our new investigation with a foundational question. What if the subterranean chamber was not a burial vault, but a precisely tuned resonator? A resonator is a device designed to vibrate at a specific frequency. Think of a tuning fork. When you strike it, it produces a pure, single note. If you have another identical tuning fork nearby, it will begin to vibrate on its own in sympathy without ever being touched. This is resonance. It's a way of transferring energy through vibration. Now, let's look at the chamber again through this lens. Why build it 25 meters deep into the solid bedrock? The tomb theory has no good answer, but the power plant theory does. Building it deep underground would insulate it from the chaotic noise and random vibrations of the surface world. It would be a perfectly quiet, shielded environment. But more importantly, it would physically couple the chamber directly to the deep bedrock of the Earth itself. Our planet is not a dead ball of rock. It hums with energy. It has a natural resonant frequency, known as the Schumann resonance, which is a set of electromagnetic frequencies in the Earth's atmosphere. It also has what are known as telluric currents, vast, slow-moving rivers of electrical current flowing through the Earth's crust and mantle. Tesla was obsessed with these natural energies. He believed that if you could build a device that was tuned to the Earth's natural frequency, you could create a state of resonance with the entire planet, allowing you to draw an almost limitless amount of energy from it. What if the chamber at Zoyat El Arian was just such a device? Its specific dimensions, its length, its width, its height might not have been symbolic. They might have been a precise calculation, a form of ancient physics, designed to create a space that would naturally resonate in sympathy with the Earth's telluric currents. The granite floor, with its incredible mass and crystalline structure, would act as a massive plate, vibrating in tune with the planet's subtle hum. The chamber would become a giant tuning fork, passively gathering and amplifying the natural vibrational energy of the Earth. It wasn't built to be quiet for a dead king. It was built to listen to the silent, powerful heartbeat of the living planet. This leads us to the next crucial component of our hypothetical machine. If the chamber is a resonator, gathering and amplifying mechanical vibrations from the Earth, what happens to that energy? It has to be converted into a usable form. This brings us back to the central mystery. What if the 30-ton oval tub was not a coffin, but a powerful transducer? A transducer is a device that converts one form of energy into another. The microphone you are listening to right now is a transducer. It converts the mechanical energy of sound waves into electrical signals. And a key to many transducers is a principle known as piezoelectricity. The word literally means electricity from pressure. Certain crystalline materials, most notably quartz, have a remarkable property. When you put them under mechanical stress, when you squeeze them, bend them, or vibrate them, they generate an electric charge. Conversely, if you apply an electric charge to them, they vibrate. Now let's look at the sarcophagus again. It's carved from a single massive block of Aswan granite. Aswan granite is not just any rock. It is incredibly rich in microscopic quartz crystals. It can be up to 40% quartz. What we are looking at is not just a 30-ton block of stone. We are looking at a 30-ton block of quartz crystals, all locked together in a matrix. Let's assemble the pieces. We have a resonant chamber, tuned to the Earth's frequency, causing the entire granite floor to vibrate. Set into this vibrating floor is a massive granite tub, which is also vibrating in perfect sympathy. What are its billions upon billions of internal quartz crystals doing? They are being subjected to a constant rhythmic mechanical stress. According to the laws of physics, they would be generating an electrical charge. The entire 30-ton tub would be converting the vibrational energy of the Earth into raw electricity. This theory gives a stunning new purpose to every strange feature of the tub. Its immense mass would allow it to store a tremendous amount of vibrational energy. Its unique, curved oval shape, which makes no sense for a coffin, could be the perfect geometry for focusing the energy, preventing it from dissipating, perhaps creating a standing wave or a focused electrical field at its center. Its flawless interior polish might have been necessary to prevent any imperfections from disrupting the resonance or causing the electrical charge to arc unpredictably. The granite tub wasn't meant to hold a body. It was the engine of the power plant, the humming, vibrating heart of the machine, silently transforming the rhythm of the planet into usable power. So, our hypothetical machine has a power source, the Earth's vibrations, and an engine to convert it, the granite transducer. This creates a self-contained system deep underground, generating electricity. But what's the point if the power is trapped 25 meters below the desert? How do you use it? This is where the most obvious missing feature of the site comes into play. This brings us to the ghost of a structure on the surface. What if the pyramid itself was meant to be the antenna? An antenna is a device for either receiving or transmitting electromagnetic energy. The pyramids, with their specific geometric shape, their massive size, and their construction from materials like limestone, which becomes more conductive when damp with atmospheric humidity, are perfect candidates for acting as giant antennas. In our power plant model, the pyramid could have served one of two functions, or perhaps both. The first possibility is that it was a receiver. Tesla believed that the atmosphere itself was crackling with free energy, which could be collected. A tall, pointed pyramid would act like a giant lightning rod, drawing electrostatic energy from the air and channeling it down into the chamber below. This atmospheric energy would then be added to the telluric energy from the Earth, feeding more power into the transducer tub and amplifying the entire system's output. In this version, the pyramid is the input that gathers power from the sky to supplement the power from the ground. But the second possibility is even more spectacular. What if the pyramid was the transmitter? This aligns perfectly with Tesla's greatest and most famous dream, the world wireless system. Tesla envisioned broadcasting electricity through the air and the earth, allowing anyone, anywhere, to receive it with a simple antenna. What if the machine at Zoyat El Arian was designed to do just that? In this model, the immense electrical power generated by the transducer tub would be channeled upwards, through the pyramid structure. The pyramid would then act as a massive broadcast tower, radiating that energy outwards in all directions. It would have bathed the surrounding landscape in an invisible energy field. Nearby temples, palaces, or even entire cities could have been powered by this field, using smaller receiving devices to tap into the free wireless electricity. This would represent a level of technological sophistication that would rewrite our understanding of the ancient world. The pyramid was not a tombstone to mark a grave. It was a broadcast antenna for a civilization powered by a technology we are still struggling to achieve. This brings us to the final, haunting question. If this incredible machine was so brilliantly designed, why is it in its current state? Why is the chamber finished, but the pyramid antenna barely started? The tomb theory answers this with the death of a king. But the power plant theory offers a different, and perhaps more compelling, explanation. What if this was not an abandoned project, but a failed prototype? Let's imagine the scene not from a religious perspective, but from a technological one. A team of ancient scientists and engineers are working on their most ambitious project yet. They have successfully excavated the site and installed the primary components, the resonator chamber and the transducer tub. The machine in the basement is ready for its first test run, even before the main broadcast antenna on the surface is complete. They are on the verge of a breakthrough that could change their world. They activate the system. Perhaps there is a specific ritual or a mechanical process needed to prime the resonator and start the sympathetic vibrations. They stand back and wait. And then one of two things happens. The first possibility is a catastrophic failure. They may have underestimated the power they were tapping into. There could have been a massive, uncontrolled energy discharge, an arc of artificial lightning that vaporized rock, a concussive blast that shook the very bedrock. The machine could have overloaded, cracked the granite, or created a dangerous, unstable energy field. Faced with a disaster that could level the entire area, the engineers made a command decision. Shut it down. The project was too dangerous. The risks outweighed the rewards. The second, and perhaps more likely possibility, is a simpler, quieter failure. They turned it on, and nothing happened. Or the energy output was far too low to be useful. They may have made a miscalculation in the resonant frequency. Perhaps there was a flaw in the design of the transducer. Despite all their incredible work, the machine simply didn't function as intended. It was a magnificent, brilliant, and very expensive failure. In either scenario, catastrophic success or quiet failure, the result is the same. The project is scrapped. But you don't just walk away from a top-secret technological prototype. You decommission it. You remove any sensitive tools or secondary components. You clean the site to remove all traces of your experiment. And then you seal it up and walk away, burying your failure in the desert. This failed prototype theory perfectly explains the state of the site: the finished underground components, the barely started surface structure, and the strangely sterile, clean condition of the chamber. It wasn't abandoned because of a death. It was decommissioned because of a failure in physics. And so, it sits there today, a silent monument not to a dead king, but to the breathtaking ambition of a lost science. In the sands of Zoyat El Arian, we are left with two starkly different stories. One is a tale of human ambition and loss of forgotten king, whose grand tomb was reclaimed by the desert before it could be completed. The other is a story that challenges the very foundations of Historia, tale of a highly advanced civilization that understood the laws of physics and energy in ways we are only just beginning to rediscover. The evidence is strange, contradictory, and tantalizing. And because the site remains locked away in a military zone, the mystery endures, safe from modern investigation. We are left to wonder and to weigh the evidence for ourselves. So what do you believe lies at the bottom of that pit? The resting place of a king, or the silent, waiting heart of an ancient machine? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for exploring history's mysteries with Ancient Relics Keeper. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What secret should we unravel next? Stay curious and see you soon.